Brilliant. Okay, yeah, thanks very much for the invitation. Yeah, so student staff partnerships for a first year introduction to proof module, but I'm also going to talk about my sort of background with student staff partnerships. I'm going to frame this as thinking of SSPs as a crime, and then when we're thinking about a crime, we have to think who benefits, cui bono, and that helped us to determine who the suspect is. You know, I mean, who should we suspect as having committed the crime? And the thing with SSPs is that there are many possible beneficiaries to the crime of SSP, as we'll see. Okay, so the first crime that was committed that I was involved in terms of SSPs was when I started at Exeter, and I was helped by Barry, I guess, as being part of this the students as change agents thing that was happening there. So we need a motive as well for a crime, and the motive here is we observe that pure maths and some other modules are identified as at-risk subjects. So what does that mean? That means either a subject where there's a retention problem, or maybe simply those that are considered so fundamental to future study that they require a thorough understanding from the outset. I was helped to get a HE STEM grant to set up a peer-assisted learning scheme in mathematics, and that got me supervisor training from Will and Marsha at the SI Pass National Centre in Manchester. So what is peer-assisted learning? I think Barry's mentioned that already. So peer-assisted learning is when we have these peer-assisted learning leaders who design and run group learning sessions for more junior undergraduates. They're meant to be process experts and not content experts. And the sessions are meant to be non-judgmental. And they're supported by regular debrief sessions and observations by a supervisor. So I was the supervisor. I'll just show you some of the slides I use in the training for the PAL leaders. So I say that the traditional way of teaching is a dependency cycle. I mean, I was taught this by Will and Marsha. This is not my own idea, but the idea is that the lecturer has some information they're imparting to the students. The students don't understand, so they tell them this again. They tell them more slowly. The students still don't understand. But then there's the PAL way, breaking the dependency cycle. So you tell the students something, and then the students are meant to talk to each other, and they're encouraged to do that, or they're facilitated to do that by the PAL leader. And then the students tell the PAL leader, so the students are engaged in their learning. So that was the idea. But that that was very successful. I think sort of completing the feedback loop was one of the big things of PAL. But that's not what I want to spend most of my time talking about today. I want to talk about interactive theorem proving and how I've used SSPs in that. So thanks to Kevin, I don't need to say anything about what interactive theorem proving is, but I'm going to ask a question, and I've boldly given a possible answer, which is, what is the biggest challenge for beginning undergraduates? There are probably lots of them, but I've just stated this one. So viewing the act of mathematics as that of communicating or understanding reasoned argument, because that's certainly not the expectation of what mathematics is for most A-level students. I think maybe, did Carol mention something about expectation? Maybe in her talk. But also going back to what Carol was saying, something about getting students to compare different ideas. Well, maybe in maths we don't say one idea is better than another idea, but certainly an idea is either correct or it's not correct, and the act of criticizing an argument is something that students don't do so much. One thing I like about ChatGPT is maybe not actually that it gives you answers, but the fact is that you ask it questions, and I think students need to ask questions a lot more. So if they can use ChatGPT just for asking questions, I think that's good. Anyway, so what was my experience using this theorem prover? So I started using the Lean theorem prover in 2019. It was actually because I'd been interested in logic and dependent type theory, and I had seen this resource that Jeremy Avogadro had created, and a few others. on teaching logic. And I thought, oh, I think this will be great to help students understand reasoned argument. So I started incorporating that into my lecture notes, both static and interactive lecture notes. And it's definitely changed the way I think about mathematics, as Kevin was talking about earlier. So I had a meeting earlier today with a A-level maths teacher who's wanting to do extra activities with their students, and maybe to prove that by integration of the area of a circle is pi r squared. I'm thinking, wow, that's actually probably most arguments would be circular that you could give to an A-level student of that. But anyway, and the other thing which we'll move on to is addiction. So I think Kevin was worried about addiction with interactive theorem proving, but what I found, like Kevin, that most of the students who've gotten addicted to this have actually done well. Okay, so moving quickly on. So how did SSPs enter into my work here? So I got funding, as Barry mentioned, the Exeter Education Incubator funded me to do a project on developing mathematical reasoning and communication through computer-aided teaching and assessment for the year 2020-21, which is an interesting year. And some of that funding included money for what we call SCPs, student campus partners. So these are students, and they were funded to develop resources for this interactive theorem prover lean and to run workshops and other things. So let's see what happened in this interesting year. Well, of course, that year was the year of the big C, the lockdown. So what happened? Well, so first of all, one thing that wasn't related to the money I'd got, which was that we, of course, moved everything to using OneNote class notebooks, OneNote class notebooks, And one of my students actually took it upon herself to write summary sheets of all the definitions and theorems I created. So that kind of relates to what Barry was talking about in terms of a little bit, maybe. It wasn't so much co-curation, but it was maybe creation. So I had student campus partners. There was James, Luna, Arthur, and Omar Hara. And James actually had already worked with Kevin, weirdly enough, at Imperial. So how did this work? Because James, who lived in Cornwall, was able to do online sessions at Imperial too. So he was doing they were doing online sessions both at Imperial and at Exeter. So they created a Discord server, which was essentially acted as a virtual community. And that was really useful, not just for the students at the time, but even after the lockdown ended, there were students who found it difficult to come to face-to-face sessions. And this sort of extended the community and enabled them to stay in contact with their peers. Those students ran these proof skills workshops on this Discord server, and that was supported by the CoCalc cloud computation platform, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. They created video demonstrations, and they wrote blog posts on group theory, prime numbers, and so forth, and their personal experience. And I was editor for this blog, so I helped them develop their writing skills. And there was another assessment. Okay, so one of my students assessed the innovation at Omar. So one thing he noticed from this was that teaching lean and math simultaneously was very challenging for our students. He interviewed lecturers to determine what students struggled most with. It's essentially what I said earlier. And he then was able to adapt the proof skills workshops to teach maths first and then lean. So that's kind of going back to what Barry was saying about doing things at the time, acting rather than not just hearing the voices. So he was able to make changes in situ. But yeah, I was a bit slower to change things because I had already written these lecture notes. So I had to adapt that approach in my next iteration of the module. But he was able to do things immediately. Got things in the chat. Does that? Let's just choose. I hope it's. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. So then it says what is Okay, yeah, so we just got some student comments. What's working well with the proof skill session? So these were the sessions that my students ran. And what do you, yeah, so see what it says there. And what do you like about Lean? So if you're actually using Lean for teaching, one thing that's nice about it is you get instant feedback. And as one of these students said, you think about the rules you're using. Okay. So moving on to the next thing. Oh yeah, and then just like Kevin, we had Athena and Paola, so I think both Southampton and Edinburgh being represented here, to interview those student campus partners and other students for an education research project on Lean. And I think one of the methods they used was a think aloud method. And so more student staff partnerships. So this academic year, I've led 2 third-year group projects investigating the use of Lean, and this is using the group project module that Barry created at Exeter many years ago. And they use the think aloud method too in their assessment. So one of the projects looked at my first year module, which has now changed since the first iteration. So I'm now doing summative assessment using Lean. I think that was Paola's suggestion to do that. Oh yeah, so going back to what Carol was saying, I think the reason I was able to get away with a lot of this stuff, which is quite, was because I was director of education at the time. I'm not anymore director of education in mathematics, so it's going to be a little more tricky to get things going, or to keep things going. But yeah, so and these projects showed similar challenges and similar benefits. So some of the challenges are in terms of dealing with the syntax of Lean and understanding the Lean error messages. So that's the next evolution. So that's, oh yeah, and the other project worked with using Lean for A-level students. So that's interesting because it's thinking about this broader community of mathematicians. It's not just the people who are in my lecture class, but there's school students as well, because they will become undergraduates eventually. Right, so what's going to happen next? Well, I haven't been this past year using students to run workshops, but that's something that clearly needs to be done, essentially because there aren't any staff members who can teach with Lean, because it's not been going on for long enough. It helps to build a community, and then furthermore to design and test Lean resources. So that's everything I had to say. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Gihan. Any question for Gihan? We have minutes too.
All right.
Well, we have one in the chat there. To elaborate more on the training that you offer for the PALs, how many hours, what topics do you focus on?
Okay, so so it's 2 days worth of training, so 2 full days. They learn about the processes, and it's a bit like what Ros was saying, I think, that the way the training works, this is, I just learned this from Will and Marta, but the way the training works is that you emulate in the training the processes that they're going to be using when they're running the PAL sessions. So you do things like think, pair, share, clusters, various kinds of work, and you talk about again setting ground rules and principles. I think did Carol talk about that? Anyway, yeah. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, yeah, I think chat to Will about that really.
So if there are no more questions for Gihan, then we go to our next speaker. I think we